There is a train station in Tokyo where, every single evening for 9 years, a dog stood at the gate and waited for someone who was never coming back. His name was Hachiko, a cream-white Akita with dark, patient eyes. And the man he was waiting for had died on the morning of May 21st, 1925. Hachiko didn't know that. Or maybe, and this is where science gets quietly extraordinary, maybe some part of him did know, and he came anyway. Tonight, we are not just telling you the story of the world's most loyal dog. We are going to explain, using real neuroscience, what was actually happening inside Hachiko's brain every single time he walked to that station. Because what Hachiko did wasn't a miracle. It was biology. And when you understand the biology, it becomes even more heartbreaking than the story itself. If this kind of content moves you, dogs, science, and the quiet, extraordinary things that happen between humans and animals, then subscribe before we go any further, because this channel exists for people exactly like you. Hachiko was born in November 1923 in Odate, a city in northern Japan, bred from one of the country's oldest and most dignified dog breeds, the Akita Inu. In January 1924, he arrived at the home of Professor Hidesaburo Ueno, an agricultural scientist at Tokyo Imperial University, after a long train journey that reportedly left the puppy so weakened, Ueno and his wife Yae nursed him back to health themselves. Ueno named him Hachi, the Japanese word for 8, and the two became inseparable within weeks. Every morning, Hachiko would walk with Ueno to Shibuya Station. Every evening, he would return alone and wait at the ticket gate until Ueno stepped off the train, and then they would walk home together, side by side. This continued for 16 months. 16 months of mornings and evenings, of the same platform, the same smells, the same footsteps arriving right on schedule. And then, on May 21st, 1925, Professor Ueno went to work and did not come back. He suffered a sudden cerebral hemorrhage while teaching at the university. He was 53 years old. That evening, Hachiko was at the station. He waited. Ueno did not arrive. Hachiko waited longer. And then he went home. The next morning, he came back. And the evening after that, and the morning after that. For 9 years, 3 months, and 15 days. Until the morning of March 8, 1935, when Hachiko himself died on the streets near Shibuya Station, his body found lying in the place he had spent most of his life. He was 11 years old. His cause of death was terminal cancer and a filaria infection, meaning for much of those 9 years, he had been slowly dying, and he still came every day. Now, here is where we stop simply telling the story and start asking the real question that science has spent decades trying to answer. What was happening inside that dog's brain? Because here is what the science actually says, and it will change how you see every dog you've ever loved. When Hachiko and Professor Ueno spent those 16 months walking together every day, their brains were doing something that neuroscientists now have documented in measurable physical detail. A 2015 study published in the journal Science, led by Dr. Miho Nagasawa at Azabu University in Japan, found that when dogs and their owners simply look at each other, both brains release oxytocin, the same bonding hormone that passes between a mother and her newborn child. This is not a metaphor. The mechanism is identical. The same neurochemical pathway that builds the deepest human attachment known to biology is the exact same system activated when a dog bonds with its person. Every morning walk to Shibuya Station was quietly, chemically deepening that bond inside Hachiko's brain. Oxytocin building on oxytocin. Memory layering on memory. Until Ueno was not just a routine, but a neurological anchor. And here's what that means. When Ueno died, Hachiko did not simply lose a habit. He lost the single most chemically significant presence in the architecture of his brain. Researchers at Emory University, led by Dr. Gregory Burns, used fMRI scans to study the living canine brain. And what they found was that dogs have a hippocampus and an amygdala, the same memory and emotion centers that sit at the core of every human being's inner life. When a dog's brain encounters a familiar scent, the scent of someone it has bonded with, the amygdala activates instantly, flooding the brain with stored emotional memory so powerful it overrides almost everything else happening in the present moment. Hachiko could smell Ueno in that station, in the wooden benches, in the platform air, in the specific corner where they always stood. A dog's nose carries 300 million scent receptors, 40 times more than a human being, and those receptors do not forget. Every evening, Hachiko stood at that gate. His brain was likely being flooded with the most vivid neurological memory of the one creature that had meant everything to him. And that memory felt, to his nervous system, like presence. This is not speculation. A 2022 study published in the journal Scientific Reports found that dogs show measurable grief-like behavioral changes after losing a close companion: reduced appetite, increased attention-seeking, withdrawal, and altered sleep. The same behavioral markers seen in human grief. And the 2021 research from the Journal of Veterinary Science confirmed that dogs experiencing loss show elevated cortisol, the stress hormone, for extended periods, meaning the grief is not just behavioral, it is hormonal, it is physical, it is real. Hachiko was grieving. Every single day, for 9 years, he was carrying a grief that his body could measure and science can now confirm. But there is something else, something even more extraordinary that the neuroscience suggests about why Hachiko kept returning. And it has to do with something called anticipatory dopamine. Dopamine is the brain's reward prediction chemical. It fires not just when something good happens, but when the brain expects something good is about to happen. The walk to the station, the familiar sounds of the arriving train, the smell of the platform. Every single one of those sensory cues had been paired with one of the most dopamine-rich experiences in Hachiko's life: the moment Ueno stepped off that train. And those cues don't simply stop firing just because the reward never comes. This is what researchers call a conditioned reward pathway, and in dogs, those pathways can remain active for years. The station itself had become, neurologically, a place of hope for Hachiko. His brain was still predicting that Ueno would come. And so, he came to meet him. Station employees who initially chased Hachiko away eventually began to feed him. Vendors gave him scraps. By the time a Japanese newspaper wrote about him in 1932, people were traveling from across the country just to see him. In 1934, while Hachiko was still alive, a bronze statue was erected in his honor outside Shibuya Station. He was present at the unveiling ceremony. And when he died on March 8, 1935, Buddhist monks held prayers at his funeral. Dignitaries read eulogies. His story made the front page of newspapers across Japan. The original statue was melted down during World War II. In 1948, a second one was cast by the son of the original sculptor, and it still stands today outside Shibuya Station in the exact spot where Hachiko used to wait. Every year, on April 8th, a memorial service is held at the station. People come from all over the world. They place scarves around the statue's neck in winter. They leave flowers. They stand in the spot where a dog once stood, and they feel something they cannot entirely explain. But now, you can explain it. Because what Hachiko was doing was not simply loyalty in some vague poetic sense. It was the full weight of mammalian bonding biology playing out in the most heartbreaking way possible. A dog whose oxytocin pathways had been permanently shaped by one human, whose scent memory made an empty station feel like the presence of someone he loved, whose dopamine system kept predicting a reunion that the world had made impossible, and whose body, sick, aging, alone, kept walking that road to the station anyway, because the pull of that bond was stronger than anything else his nervous system knew. There is a line written about Hachiko by a man who saw him at the station as a schoolboy in the 1930s and published it decades later. He wrote, "In retrospect, I feel that he knew Dr. Ueno would not come back, but he kept waiting." Hachiko taught us the value of keeping faith in someone. We do not know what Hachiko understood about death. Science cannot fully answer that yet. But what science can tell us, clearly, measurably, is that the love was real. The grief was real. The bond was real. And every dog that has ever sat by your front door waiting for you to come home, every dog that perks up at the sound of your car, that circles the spot where you usually sit, that leans quietly against your leg at the end of a hard day, is running the same biology, the same oxytocin, the same scent memory, the same anticipatory dopamine, the same architecture of attachment that made an Akita walk to an empty train station in rain and cold and loneliness for 9 years. Look at your dog today. Really look. And understand that what is looking back at you is a creature whose entire nervous system has been shaped, in part, by you. That is not small. That is not ordinary. That is one of the most remarkable biological facts about life on this planet. If this story stayed with you, and I think it did, leave a comment below and tell me, does your dog wait for you? Do they have a spot, a sound, a ritual that says you are the center of their world? I read every single one. Share this video with someone who has a dog and loves them, because this is the kind of science that deserves to be heard. And I will see you in the next one.